for joining Empower Your Agency, Building a Culture of Opportunity and Impact webinar. Today, we're going to explore strategies for creating a supportive, values-driven workplace and drive success. I'd like to make a note to please keep microphones muted and cameras off while we take questions at the end. I would first like to introduce our host, Rachel McClurg with PIIB, and our guest, Daniel Vander Kooi with Manna Insurance. Daniel has built a thriving team by fostering a culture of opportunity, accountability, and engagement. He'll be sharing on his insights on what worked in his agency. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Rachel.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Carrie. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, how are we doing?
Good. How are you today?
Good.
Good. So I think it would be great just to start out with giving a little more background information on yourself and your agency, how you got into insurance, you know, your staff size, written premium, just so the people who end up watch this video can reference back to how you grew and what you did.
Yeah, so I've been in insurance since 2010. Started off, had another business partner. We merged with another local agency, and then I was there about a year and decided to go out on my own. We have a team right now of about 22, 23 people. That'll probably expand a little bit, probably up to 25 by the end of the year. We're a full service brokerage, so we have our commercial division, personal lines, life, health, and then also a benefits division as well. So yeah, we are, man, we're sitting somewhere between 15 to 20 million in written premium on the P&C side. And yeah, we just have a great team, work hard, and try to serve people well.
That's fantastic. So thank you for that background information. And we know at PIIB, because we work with you, that focus on staff and building culture and value and everything like that is very important to you. And so that's why we were really excited to have you on for this webinar. So what initially inspired you to focus on building a value-driven culture, and how has it impacted your agency's growth?
Yeah, I think my background, I was a youth pastor for 10 years before I got into insurance. So people have always been really key for me. Relationships have been. And when I worked at another agency and we had merged with another local company, there's just a few things that I saw of how staff was treated, how people were taken care of, clients were taken care of, that some things just didn't sit well with me. And so I said, well, I'm an outside of the box thinker. I don't like to do things the way they've always been done just because that's how they've always been done. So when I started to think about what would I want in a scenario, and I went through, in 2009, I went through an accident, and there was a lawsuit filed against me from a car accident. I was just like, man, like, how do I want this handled if you know, going back to my situation, right? And so how do we serve people well? How do we bring knowledge? But honestly, like when there's a claim or there's something going on, people really don't understand the insurance industry that well. They're looking to you as the advisor to have knowledge in that and to take care of them. And so how do we earn a client for life in those times? Yeah, price is important, but how do we really make sure people are covered? And so we started to really look at what if we actually showed up and cared? And I do a lot of Dave Ramsey's entree leadership as business leadership with our executive team and our team leads. And if you look across the United States right now, there's a lot of people, it's 800 numbers. People just don't take the time to explain things. They try to push people off. What if we just actually showed up and cared for each client like it was a member of our own family, like it was one of your kids, right? And so that's the thing that we've tried to really harp on with our team is just let's show up, let's answer the phone, even if it's going to be a difficult conversations. And let's be honest with people and let's take care of them. And I think that's gone a long way because our staff knows exactly what our core values are. Our staff knows exactly what our objectives are and where we're going and who we are and what we want to be. So it's, I think that's helped in the process and just understanding that we're here to serve people. And if you have an attitude that's just all about the money or things like that, yeah, you'll be okay for a while, but at some point the rubber is going to hit the road and people can sniff that out. And where's your integrity lie and what's your purpose? And our purpose is to serve people really well and show up when they need us most. So
Ugh, that's beautiful. I love that. What are some of the specific strategies you use to boost employee morale and motivation in your office?
We eat a lot of food together.
Yeah.
You listen. We have a saying in our office, the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionately.
Mhm.
And celebrate the wins. And the bottom line is we all come to work to support ourselves or our families. And so we might as well have fun while we're doing it, and I tell my kids every day when I drop them off at school and they get on my pickup, I just say, hey, be kind to someone today. And that's what we try to do with our staff. We're not always it's not always gonna be, roses and everyone's gonna be happy all the time. But when we do have conflict, how do we handle it? So we have in our office, we don't tolerate gossip. There's one warning and then you're fired. It's that.
Okay.
Gossip tears
Yeah.
culture apart. Gossip ruins relationships. It ruins teams. It ruins your reputation in the community. It is absolutely not tolerated at all. There is no excuses for it. And so what we found is by taking time and just connecting with people is what's best. And we do that over food. So in my my line items, my CFO is always like, we spent a lot of money on food and entertainment this year. I'm like, yeah, well, we're going to do that. Like, that's part of our culture. And I find when you do that and you can pull people out of just the daily grind of things, you can just see their shoulders just kind of relax a little bit. Right. And so how do you do
Yeah.
that and highlight people? The other thing that goes along with that I don't think people realize is as your team grows, you can only manage 3 to 4, maybe 5 people really effectively and be really involved in them. And so what we've had to go is where I have my executive team. And so I have 3 people on that. And then we have 4 or 5 team leads of different divisions. Right. And so it becomes our executive team and my job to make sure that we're managing those team leads and investing into them. And then those team leads are investing into their team, right? Their division, personal lines or benefits or commercial. So so that's another area that we've had to kind of say, okay, we can't manage all these people and actually have deep, meaningful relationships with them, with our team, if we're so spread out across the board, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that we've realized is like, how do we kind of break this up and make sure that we're investing into those people and sitting down with them and listening to where they're at. And if you're not willing to listen and you think you know everything, you're probably not a good leader.
Well, and that's all just such great advice because I feel like too, and just even breaking it down to having, managers for a smaller group, because when voices get lost, that's when people and employees can get unhappy and
Yeah.
things can start to go off the rails a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to the food and kind of, eating together and chatting and listening. Is that incorporated into the workday, or are these things you're doing after work hours or weekends, or how does that look?
Yeah. So I have 3 kids that are 16, 13, and 10. They're busy. And so I don't want to take away time from people's family time. That's the other thing that we have in our office too, is if your kid's got an event at school or something like that, you better be there. The work will be here when you get back. And so so we harp on that. But yeah, no, a lot of it's during the workday. So we'll just we'll do lunches. We have a team meeting tomorrow. We have a monthly team meeting with our entire staff of 22, 23. And sometimes we'll bring in a speaker for that, or I'll teach on something, or Nate, our operations HR guy, will. We always provide a meal then. So people come in, it'll be at 11. We'll come in, we'll do the meeting, and we'll have a whole spread set up for them afterwards. And they'll kind of hang out for about 15, 20 minutes after they eat. And then everyone will head back and start plugging away. So we find pockets to do it. And it's not always everyone as a whole, right? But it's can Caleb take his commercial producers out? Can Adam take his commercial CSRs out? Can Talissa take out her personal lines team? And kind of segment it that way. It's a lot of lunches and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I'll try to just randomly grab a couple people and do that as well. So.
And I think that kind of plays into what the next question is how do you balance productivity and employee well-being in a fast-paced insurance environment? But it's kind of what you just said and add on to it, but you're finding the pockets where things can fit in and But yeah, please elaborate a little more on that.
Yeah, it's not an exact science. It's more of an art and kind of figuring things out. We've been like our personal lines team the last year has been absolutely bombarded. Hub bought out another pretty prominent local community shop. Brown and Brown shifted a lot of their current clients to an account manager down south instead of one of their local ones. Two of their long-term 35 plus years account managers left. And so one came over to us and another one retired. And so we've been inundated with new business on the personal line side. And it's just like, man, how do we make sure that our team isn't being completely stressed out? We're giving them breaks, we're giving them opportunities just to breathe and enjoy their work, but yet keep up on new business coming in the door. And so we've had to get creative. And I think that's where a leader's job becomes looking at the 30,000-foot view of your agency and just saying, we can't keep doing what we've always done because it's not going to work anymore. And so that's where you have to start to look and say, okay, there's a lot of productivity happening, but at what cost? Am I going to lose one of my key people because they hate their job every morning? And there is a couple months there, they would walk in the door and I would just see it on their face. And so we had to move to some different systems. Like we had a deal where, everyone's price shopping right now, right? So we just said, hey, if you're with one of our personal lines carriers, we're really excited that you want to come into our office and work with us and get a quote from us. But if you're with a carrier that we have, that your other agency already has, as Safeco or Travelers or whoever, this is our process. This is what we do. This is how we treat our clients. This is the workflow with our clients. So if you want to work with us, that's great, but you have to sign a BOR before we're going to offer you new quotes. And that's something that I've never done because I don't like to necessarily earn. There's a lot of people like their BOR business. That's how they build their agency. That's not us. And so, but we had to pivot to something that we have never done. Technology. What systems are you going to put into place? So we've connected with Agency Zoom and we've built out fast apps and things like that too. So then making sure that all of our account managers are getting all the data before they even start the quote process. And it was hard because we have a couple old school agents that like to try to do it all themselves and things like that. So there's too much back and forth anymore. And you got 100 to 125 new business quotes a month coming in. You can't continue to operate that way. And so those were some of the things. And what we found is the productivity when we actually got our systems and our standing operating procedures like really dialed, and then coupled that with the technology side of things, it allowed just them to breathe a little bit and get caught up in renewals, actually get to do the things that like we value in them is building those relationships with our clients. And a piece of that is we're moving to a new agency management system too in the next few months that has a lot of AI built into it that will even allow the workload of our team members to kind of lessen a little bit so they can continue to focus on the relationship. And so it really becomes the job of the leader to make sure that you're kind of taking care of that and you got your pulse on things. And in order to do that, you got to be present, right? Like you can't just be vacant from your agency. And so you got to really be listening and checking in. And so 9 o'clock every morning, I kind of make the rounds around upstairs and personal lines and benefits. And then about 10:30, 11 o'clock every morning, I go down, I check in with all the producers, commercial account managers downstairs, see how they're doing, see what they're working on. And honestly, just kind of BS with them a little bit and just kind of say, hey, where you at, what you're working on? And usually something comes out of that. And so it's just kind of the check-in and being present there. So,
yeah. Well, and going back to the technology and kind of having it set up to help, your staff experience, we'll probably have to connect with you in a couple months after you have everything, in place with your new system to kind of see how that went, because that could be really helpful for other agencies to hear as well. Let's see. In your office, how do you use recognition programs or other incentives to show employees they are valued?
I'm always nervous about recognition like programs because I was a big fan of The Office. And when Dwight Schrute, Jimmy rigged Jim on a employee of the month situation. So if anyone's an Office fan, you guys will understand. But what we try to do is we just call it out when we see it. And so if we get, you know, typically in our team meetings once a month, we kind of go around and do a quick check-in with everyone. We're small enough that we can do that. It takes a little bit of time with 22, 23 people, but we kind of do a quick check-in, highlights of what's going on personally and professionally, where you at. And sometimes, you know, good stuff comes out of that. Sometimes people are struggling with different things. It's an opportunity for us to rally around them. But usually in that, there's some people highlighting, hey, my account manager just crushed it for me on this, got this turned around really quick when I got decks on something. The other thing I like to do is I call it the $100 handshake. And so when you see something and someone just had a really great week or crushed it, I'll just grab a $100 bill and go shake their hand and say thanks for your hard work. And little things like anniversary, like I'm still a big believer. There's something about a handwritten card. And so I have kind of a cheesy thing. When my wife and I were on vacation, I had this like big straw hat on and sunglasses, and I had a thumbs up selfie. And so I had a card made of that. And then I'll just write a little note in there, and I'll for everyone's work anniversary, I'll throw $50 in there. Just little things to like highlight that they're a part of your team and they're valued. And it's amazing. And I think too, like the daily check-ins with that goes a long way as well. So just trying to find times and connect with people. And it's amazing how much you don't even need to say anything to give recognition. Listening to someone and giving them 2 minutes of your time and to check in and say, hey, what's going on? And just sit down at their desk and allowing them to talk and just go,
Yes.
goes a long way. And that's a form of recognition that I don't think we even think about very often. And that 2 to 5 minutes that you might spend with them at their desk and check in and let them share maybe some highlights of the week, but also maybe some frustrations going on, shows that you care. And I think that's going to go a lot longer way than just highlighting them in front of everybody. We do want to celebrate, right? We celebrate the wins in public, criticize in private. But those are some areas that how we kind of do things internally here.
And then just from kind of doing things like that and investing in your culture and having these lunches, have you seen it, or can you share a story that has directly led to a business success or a positive outcome?
We do a lot of community stuff. We're pretty involved in our community. We have a big, I mean, we're a town of 15 to 18,000 people. So we're not huge, but around the county is a little bit bigger. But we have 2 big events that we do a year. We have the Northwest Washington Fair, which brings in about 300,000 people to town that week. And then we have the Northwest Raspberry Festival that we get about 30 to 40,000 people in kind of our downtown block right by our new building. And so we're pretty heavily involved in those. So one of the things that we do with the Northwest Washington Fair is it's a 10-day fair. We sponsor 5 nights of entertainment. So we have a couple nights of Demolition Derby. We have like Jake Owen we're sponsoring this year, Chandler Moore. We had Walker Hayes last year. And what we do with that is we sponsor the event. We get it announced like, hey, welcome to this concert or this demo derby. A few years ago, we were just starting to really kind of tip from being a smaller agency to really kind of like building our brand in the community, and there'd been some changes going on. And so what we said, we told all of our staff, we said, okay, we're sponsoring the Demolition Derby. We have during our summer barbecue that we do with all of our families, we have about 70 some kids that show up to that from like all the families represented. And we just said, hey, we are going to buy tickets for everyone. Whoever wants to come to the Demolition Derby that night, we'll pay for your gate entry ticket, and we'll pay for the demo derby that night. And so we had this whole section like right in the middle of the grandstands of probably, I don't know, 100 people or so. And it was our team. And, I go up on stage and announce, hey, welcome to the Northwest Washington Fair, the demo derby. We're really excited. Thanks to the board of directors for having us. Yeah. And then we had the whole thing up there, and all of our teams like standing up and cheering and stuff. And then we took all the kids and we had a t-shirt gun, and we had them like grab t-shirts and throw them out into the crowd after the first heat and stuff like that. And then everyone went back up. And there's a guy in town, a big like commercial painter, and I've known him for years. We've gone to church together, but he's always kind of just stayed with this other agency. He's like, there's just no one that's doing what you guys are doing in the community. I see your guys' name everywhere. You're involved in stuff. You're involved in the schools, whether it's the musical or basketball or baseball programs. You're involved with the Raspberry Festival at the fair. Because especially coming out of COVID, we're just bringing people together in community. That's so cool. He goes, I gotta move my stuff over to you. And what's funny is he didn't say that to me. He said that to my marketing person who he didn't even know in the middle of Costco when he was there shopping with his wife, and he saw a Manna, like a Manna polo
Yeah.
or a Manna jacket on or something like that. And so we ended up getting a bunch of his stuff, and then he started referring all the general contractors he works with and other people too. And so that was kind of a cool moment of like, hey, we're spending all this money on sponsorship and we're investing into our team. They're all there, but he noticed the impact of that, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. And I love too how it's something that like, yeah, you're investing in your team, but it's like this outside of work thing where everyone was going for fun, but you were still, had your name out there, and now
Yep.
it brought in a good client who's referring more clients.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you handle resistance or negativity when trying to implement a more supportive work culture?
Yeah, I think everyone's wired very differently. So we within our office, we do disc profiles, disc personality profiles. And then we also do another thing that was Patrick Lencioni developed a few years back called the Working Genius. And so like in the Working Genius, there's six geniuses or six like kind of personality traits that you are in your work life. And there's innovative, there's galvanizing, which is kind of like getting everyone in a room and rallying them behind an idea. There's wonder, which means kind of brainstorming. There's discernment. There's tenacity and enablement. Tenacity and enablement are like seeing the things through the end or making sure people have what they need. And what's interesting is like I'm the only one in the office that has invention or innovation, and then I'm one of two that has galvanizing. And then my working frustrations are the tenacity enablement, which are seeing the things through to the very end, right?
Mhm.
Well, everyone around me on my executive team, like their working genius is the enablement and tenacity, right? They're like my weaknesses and their balance. And what we've tried to do is like match up like producers with account managers who are the opposite of them. And
Mhm.
so you start to kind of work through that. So what happens though is when you start to get pushback on things, we kind of stop and say, why are we getting the pushback? Like, let's work backwards from this. So we already know that when I walk into, I'm not going to say their name, when I walk into their office, they are very like, just give me the bullet points. I don't want any fluff. I don't really care the emotions around it or whatever. Just tell me why this is going to work and how. Versus
Yeah.
someone else that I walk into their office and I know I might get pushback on it. I have to really explain like the why, how this affects three different people in our office and work around that. So having a really understanding of your team and where they're coming from, it is a start to try to mitigate that pushback that you might get. And then the other thing that we have, and I kind of stole this from Dave Ramsey and his team and their business leadership stuff, is you got to kill the sacred cow. And like, we don't do things just because they've always been done in the insurance industry. I think we're going to be one of the first 10 agencies in the country to shift to this new agency management system. And it's because we found that our team just, they need the relief from it. And we need help on the backside, and it's going to allow data entry and things like that to just not be duplicated over and over and over. And so as we do that, we've gotten pushback from people who just, they don't understand the technology. They don't understand why we're having to do this. And so sometimes it just takes meeting after meeting after meeting. And they say sometimes, people need to hear things 7 to 10 times before they really are like, okay, I'm on board. And there's some people that just, they don't want to get on board. And you finally hit a point where you're just like, here's the deal. This is where the bus is going. We love you. We're not going to push you. We're going to try to pull you along, but at some point you either got to get on or not. And if you're not going to get on,
Yeah.
then maybe this has run its course. And we love you as a person. We think the world of you, but this is where we're going. And if you can't get on board with that, maybe, you can't play at that next level with us. So there's no perfect science to it. But I think if you come, Patrick Lencioni, the guy that did that Working Genius, he's written a bunch of books, and one of the books he's written that has been critical that we've used a lot in our hiring process is The Ideal Team Player. And he has 3 things that they look for in there, and we've adopted those in our hiring processes and within our team too. Are you hungry? Are you humble? And are you smart? And if you're humble, you're always willing, excuse me, you're willing to listen and to learn new things. And that's where a lot of that conversation comes around. When we're getting pushback on things, we'll refer back to that and just say, like, do you think you know everything? Like, because I had to learn about this, and so had to, we've all had to adjust. And so it's just having honest, heartfelt conversations. And if you come at those conversations with humility, opposed to like, hey, this is what we're doing, deal with it, right? I don't know. I struggle with leadership that's always just like kind of like they're pushing down on people, right? Like as a leader, you're there to serve people. You're there to guide people. If you come with kind of like cracking the whip, that's a boss. That's not a leader. And leaders try to show you where we're going and say, hey, we want you to come. We want you to be on the bus, and go from there. So, yeah.
Going back to just a little sliver of what you talked about, we have started doing the DISC assessments too, and I love them. I'm like super interested in them. I love like reading about all my team members and like how we can communicate better and everything like that. I think I find them very interesting and I like them a lot. So I hope to build on that with some of the other things you mentioned, like Working Genius and kind of throwing those things in there. And now to the last question, what advice, because you have this down. I mean, you could probably, if you didn't want to run your agency anymore, you could probably have a consulting service on like, do these steps to have like an amazing culture in your office. What advice would you give to small agency owners just starting their culture building journey? Like, where's the best place to start?
I think I'm a big conference guy. I like to go things. I'm like, so in my DISC profile, I'm a pretty high D, but I'm like off the charts I. So I just like to have a good time. I like everyone to be happy. Right. And so like, I like going to those big events, and they kind of, they encourage me, they give me fuel, kind of all of a sudden you're surrounded by a bunch of other business owners, and you're like, oh, someone understands what I'm going through. Because leadership can be really lonely at times too. And what I have to really fight is when I come back from those, my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour. And there's all these cool ideas we could implement. And a lot of times as leaders, especially of agencies, a lot of times we've started out as salespeople. And so salespeople are like the easiest people to sell. And then you get shiny object syndrome and you just want to implement everything. I'd say start small. Listen to your team. Listen to your team through a filter. Doesn't mean that whatever they say that you're going to do or that they're always right. But I think taking the time to show them that you care. What's the old saying is no one cares about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And so if you take the time with them, take them out to lunch, like stop nickel and diming every little thing and just actually care for that person. That's where it starts. You can't fake culture. Like, so we had a situation one time. We were in, I think it was the second office we moved into. It was about 1,500 square feet. We had, at that point, we had like been growing again, and we had gone from like 4 people when we moved into that office to like 8, and we were kind of on top of each other. And we've always said that family comes first. And there was a situation where one of our team members couldn't get childcare. And so we have like this little like Nerf basketball hoop in the back by like the coffee machine. And like my office at the time was like right next to that room. And so this kid's there for 2 or 3 hours and he's shooting hoops back there. And I'm just like, all right, Dan, like you got to put your money where your mouth is, because you just said like family comes first. Right. And here's this kid like back there shooting hoops or whatever, and kind of driving me nuts, and I'm not having a great day. And so it was just one of those moments where I'm just like, wow, we talk about this. This doesn't happen every day. Our people aren't bringing their kids to work, but it was just an anomaly, right, for a few hours. And I'm just like, no, I got to shut my mouth and practice what I preach. And so I think just finding little ways to connect with your team. Listening is extremely powerful. Be the last person to speak in a meeting. If you hold a meeting, like a lot of times if we speak first, that might intimidate a coworker or someone else to actually speak up and share their idea, because you've already shared your idea, when they might have an incredible idea that just trumps yours completely, but you're never going to get to hear that because you were the first one. And as the leader of a company, they're just gonna be like, oh, he's already got what wants to do, right? So I just find little ways to connect. Don't try to do everything overnight. I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership Program. So everyone knows Dave for his like cash in the envelopes and stuff. He has a whole business leadership development program. It's called Entree Leadership. I don't get anything for saying it, but it's completely changed our hiring process, how we handle culture, how we handle conflict. They give you a roadmap to a bunch of stuff. They have live conferences with different speakers and stuff. That's been huge for us. And so if you can find someone to connect with, find other business owners in your industry and outside of your industry that you can network with. We got a group of guys. There's six of us, and one guy's got 250 employees and works in the refinery space. Another guy transports, does like gun transporting. Another guy is a service master franchise. We get together once a month for breakfast, share our frustrations, share our wins, pray together, and really just kind of dive in and just see where each other are at, encourage one another, and get ideas from that too. And so, connection's most important. You need to be connected with your people, and that will start to change your culture. And be the leader that you wanted when you were a kid. So if you ever played sports, like be the coach that you always wanted as a coach, right? Be that leader, right? Be someone who's going to be empathetic and actually lead you and do the hard things. Like if you're telling someone that, hey, you need to make these changes, they might not know how to make them. So go sit at their desk with them and teach them about delegation and clicking the forward button, and go through their inbox and say, your job is this. It is not this. You need to forward these things. That we just recently had this conversation with someone, and our operations guy, Nate, went and sat with them and like for multiple days in a row and said, okay, you need to forward that on to Talissa. You need to forward that on to Adam. You need to forward that, right? And actually do it. There's no shortcut to it, but you have to live life together. You have to work together, and you have to be present in order to do that. If you start doing those little things and just having real, honest conversations and listening to the hard facts, you might hear things that you don't want to hear that are going to be more work for you. But if you start to listen and connect, that will start to change your culture. And then you can start to develop and see where you want to go from there.
Well, and I want to give you a quick shout out too before we wrap this up, of just, mentioning you like networking and going to the events. And just when we were at that event in Washington where we saw you, and we had a prospect there we were talking to and had just met, and you sat there and she was, breaking off, starting her own agency. You spent so much time just answering her questions, with your experiences, because you had done the same thing that she was starting to do. And I just thought that was so kind. And it was amazing that you did that. And I mean, she is with PIIB officially now, so that
She texted me last night. She's like, "What are for comp structures?"
Well, good. Like, I'm glad. See, look, you guys are still chatting. Like, I just think you guys we were all three people who, like, I mean, we knew you guys, but didn't know her before, so like, and it's amazing now that there's these relationships, and that was just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So no, thank you for that. And then this has been so much good information. I really hope people come and watch this and take it with them. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, feel free to put them in the chat. I know there's a few people in here. So if you have some questions, let us know really quick. But if not too, I'll pull it up. We can let everyone go too, to move on with their day and work on building culture at their office.
And we need to have you teach like a master class.
I know. I know. It was so good.
Wow.
All right. Well, I don't think we have any questions, but Dan, thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Thanks for all you do. Appreciate you and the PIIB team. So
yeah, of course. And everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.